Well,
Richard Spencer says, sorry, Stryker.
go ahead. No.
Richard Spencer says Antifa is winning. Mike, what do you think of that?
Well, it's not Antifa. Antifa are drug addicts and losers that are deployed by elites in order to cause chaos to prevent us from speaking. I mean, they themselves are not important. They're just losers. They're just useful idiots for international finance capital, as we say. Like they're LARPing, like you're just dumbasses that go out and cause a bunch of violence in the streets and attack people and ruin people's lives on behalf of a bunch of billionaires. So, it's not Antifa. It's actually it's the system, and they're just its foot soldiers. So yeah, look, and look, we knew when we went into this, some of us did, and we now I think more people understand. We know we're going up against an extremely organized and extremely powerful force. And so it shouldn't really surprise that they hit back and they hit hard. And so yeah, like again, they developed an effective repressive mechanism to deal with us attempting to go out and exercise our First Amendment rights, which is our, in theory, our right under the Constitution of the United States. But of course, a right has to be secured by force. And they have developed an effective mechanism to suppress our ability to do that. So we have to figure out how they're doing that and work our way around it.
Well, I think there was last year, there was a free speech advocate that said it best. He said it in an op-ed. He said that the First Amendment is antiquated. It's irrelevant at this point because now, the courts have already ruled that, for example, there was a very famous ruling on Facebook where a court found that sex offenders, you could not ban a sex offender from using Facebook because it violated his First Amendment rights. So the courts have already ruled that internet platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter have ruled time and time again that these are public squares with First Amendment protections. And yet this is not being executed. There's no will to impose these laws onto these companies. And so the ADL is imposing what they think should be the internet. And they control what gets said and what can't be said, what can be discussed and what isn't discussed. And this is all being coordinated with street terrorism. And that's what it is. When you use violence to violate some extrajudicial violence to shut someone's permitted speech down, that is the definition of terrorism. And these Antifa types, these are being churned out at universities where they have these cadres of people that walk lockstep with multinational corporations, that walk lockstep with their professors who have their own interests also with the elite. And these people are useful idiots. I'll give them credit to one extent. Some of them are willing to, get injured and get hurt and stuff. They go out there, they're willing to die just to get you not to speak. They're willing to risk their freedom to go to jail, to die, just so you can't use your free speech. And that is a kind of fanaticism that does not come out of the ether. That is something that is being, the youth are being indoctrinated in our public school system.
These are heavily conditioned people. It's
These
quite
are
remarkable.
brainwashed and churned out. And I think this is like a couple of generations, 30 years ago, even as bad as the Southern Poverty Law Center is, I never imagined that they would have an open and out Antifa like Alexander Reed Ross on their pay staff. And they do. They have him now. I would never imagine that there would be in Newsweek, in The Nation, in all these other newspapers out there, there would be open Antifas advocating for political violence without any repercussions.
The editorial line of many of these publications is now, well, I guess we were wrong about that whole political violence thing being wrong.
The problem is with them, the problem with them is that political violence works in the short term, and they're enjoying the fruits of their short-term violence. Now, they're starting to get out of control now because they're going after everyone. They're punching everyone. I mean, if you're going to go out there and say that Sargon of Akkad is a Nazi and you're going to attack his thing, you're not being honest. You're just trying to impose something, and that something is cultural communism. And so what's happening now, what the stage we're in now, is very similar to Germany when Rosa Luxemburg was using violence and terrorism to impose her will. The winds can blow in one direction only for so long. So I welcome the Antifas. I welcome their strategies. I welcome their tactics. I think that they are doing great work in the long term, even if they get gains in the short term, because they are radicalizing people to a point. I'm not part of it. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't know anything about that, but they are making people really angry. And
well, look at it
I
like
would say,
this. We're coming up on primary season. Donald Trump is going to be holding rallies around the country. He's going to be going around campaigning for various candidates. He's going to be holding rallies. And if the alt-right is not, if self-identified alt-right is not out in the streets protesting, what is Antifa going to do? Well, they're going to go and punch. They're going to go and try and beat up and punch the Trump supporting people. I want them to. I mean, I don't want violence, but if they do that, that's politically advantageous for our position. And they're so dumb, they're going to do it. Well, like they will be going out and they will be punching blue collar MAGA hat wearing Americans for just going because they want to hear their president speak. They're going to be doing it.
The problem is with the elites is that whenever they deal with something like an irregular or a paramilitary army that is so undisciplined, like these Antifas are, there's no doubt in my mind that the elites activated them after Charlottesville, especially. They were activated by people with power.
Activated, yeah, absolutely.
And they were mobilized and activated. The problem is that once you do that, it's very hard to control these terrorist groups. We saw this with ISIS, right? Mm-hmm. They were supposed to just maybe hold the Iranians off, maybe kill a few Shias out there, maybe hold the line a little bit, keep things interesting, and it became something totally different. Yep. And with these Antifas, the same thing is going to happen, and it's going to cause a major issue in the United States in the near future. I'm talking about a future where you're going to have communists and Nazis killing each other in the streets, just like in the 1930s. I mean, there's no other way historically. If we look at history and we think history repeats itself, which it does, what we're seeing now, this is late 1910s, 1920s Germany. That's where we're at right now. What happens in the future, I don't know, but these people are out of control. They're crazy, and the elites that are activating them and sticking them on political dissent are even crazier, and they're going to regret it in the end.
Mike, when Richard Spencer said Antifa is winning, do you agree with that? Do you think that was a mistake to say that out loud?
Well, initially I didn't like that he said that. I was like, well, if they're winning, don't like tell them. But now I'm thinking if they start to get like really high on this and start to be like, yeah, it's working. Our tactics of using street violence to repress speech worked. We shut down Spencer. It's like, okay, but Spencer, that's Spencer, right? Now they're, like Stryker said, they were activated to shut down, like the elites activated these people to shut us down, to make it so Spencer can't speak in public. And it worked. I mean, look, you can't deny that it worked. It would be flying in the face of what everybody observes to say that it didn't work. Spencer cannot go and think about it. All he wants to do is address a group of people in a college auditorium as a public intellectual and give his ideas. And he's perfectly happy for hecklers to be there. He's perfectly happy for people to come and try and BTFO him on the mic and all that stuff. And if these people had arguments, they would do it, but they don't have arguments. What they have is hundreds of punks that they've cajoled either through just like ideological indoctrination. Some of them, I'm sure that there's money and drugs involved in terms of getting them out to do violence in the streets, but they can marshal a few hundred people to create a riot around any Spencer event. And then the police are just like, yeah, we're not doing this. So that works for them, but that's not really a world that most Americans want to live in, right? The American people, and it's not even just whites, do not want to live in a world where a roving mob of ideologically indoctrinated communists and junkies can just come into a place and cause havoc and then, just shut down speakers. Most people don't agree with this no platforming. They would say, well, if Spencer's such an asshole, let him speak and then he'll expose himself. They don't agree with this shutting down stuff. They don't like it. And so now that Spencer's like, well, all right, that worked. They're going to look for other people to shut down.
Oh yeah, I mean the list of people. I mean, just the other day, Antifa type of people shut down or browbeat off the internet a woman called Elizabeth Brunig. This woman is a Catholic who's married and has children, and she's an assistant editor from the Washington Post, and she's in the Democratic Socialists of America. She's a communist, and she promotes these ideas in the Washington Post. Well, get this: she refused to endorse abortion because she's a Catholic, and the Antifa type of people on the internet came after her and got her basically expelled from left wing circles. So, it's like that famous quote from first they came. Okay, maybe she's not in the DSA, but she was very sympathetic to them. But regardless of that, they browbeat her off the internet. And it's like that quote, but in reverse, first they came for the Nazis, and then they come, they're going to come for everyone. Everyone that has any opinion that is not an extremely weird Tumblr opinion is going to get attacked. It's the new normal. These people are not going to stop. They have no self-control. And most importantly, they're getting pats on the back from it from really rich people and people with a lot of power and a lot of spotlights. And they're getting off to that because, of course, this is Generation Harry Potter we're talking about.
Yeah.
These are particular type of pathological narcissists that join these Antifa groups that get a rush from attacking people that committing acts of violence against people that they think are defenseless. So this is something that is not going to end here. You're going to see stuff like you saw in the summer of 2016. Remember with the Donald Trump rallies where they were punching old people and throwing acid in the face of
it's
babies.
It's only gonna escalate, and they're gonna feel like Spencer's statement in a way is like a strategic, this could be, you could say, oh, Mike, you're just retconning, so everything is like 5D chess. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, no, like it actually kind of Spencer, whether he meant to or not, he as saying, all right, well, I'm going to step back for a little while and focus on other things, because obviously these people create these untenable situations wherever I go. Well, these people get so high on this rush of like power and virtue, and the fact that they don't suffer consequences, the fact that they are backed up by wealthy lawyers that will defend them, that will get them out of jail, that their charges get dropped, kind of they get arrested, and then like low key the charges get dropped later on. They don't understand the actual magnitude of what they are doing, and like it's not, you don't actually, in a normal country, you don't have roving bands of punks and scumbags going out and just like attacking normal people in the street for saying things. Like that's not a normal situation. And the fact that they're not suffering, ordinarily the police would crack these people's skulls. They go out in the riot gear and they beat them into submission. And that's not happening. And that's not happening. It's making them feel invincible.
Well,
It's a dangerous place for them.
It's important to look at paramilitary groups in general. Like, you can only get away with that kind of stuff for a little while until people start organizing against you. And so I think that whatever the strategy is going forward, you're going to get people that aren't even political going out there and organizing against these Antifas. And because the police, another shocking development in the United States is the police. The police have a new strategy. Here's the new strategy. When you want to go somewhere to speak and the public institution says no, and you sue them and you win on First Amendment grounds, the new strategy to shut you down by people that in power that don't agree with you is that they will order the police to stand down and allow the communist paramilitary groups to go around them. The police will sit back and watch, and they will, and on top of that, if you defend yourself physically, they'll arrest you. Mm-hmm. That is the new way that they control. I mean, the way they're able to stop people. I'm talking about the police. The police could have easily created at MSU. They could have created a line and kept the Antifas back, kept the communists back, and instead they let them through because they didn't want people to go see Spencer speak.